So here we are, sharing secrets of the soil with me, your host, Regen Ray. Hello, soil lovers, and welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Soil. I'm your host, Regen Ray, and I'm really excited to dig deeper with our guest today because he's our youngest guest that we've had on the show. And when I met our guest from today, I just had to invite him because I get really excited when we see some of the young youth embracing the soil and regenerative. So let's welcome Teale Simmons. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks very much for having me. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk on the podcast today.
Excellent. Well, you've got your own YouTube channel and you're creating content in the paddock, and that got me very excited to invite you to talk to our soil lovers today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and I believe you're a fifth generation farmer. So share with our community who you are.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. So I'm a fifth generation farmer out of the Hawkesbury. So that is about an hour and a half out from west of Sydney. So originally my family used to run, have citrus orchards on the Hawkesbury. So right on the Hawkesbury River, it's a lovely spot. And then my dad took over the farm and started doing organic vegetables. So that was all good. It was a change in, farming practices. But about 15 years ago, we started doing free-range pigs. Now, the free-range pigs, we started implementing that because we needed a way to get rid of our organic potatoes. So we had a lot of organic potatoes. It was almost our signature vegetable. But we needed a really good way of getting rid of these potatoes organically. So we put some pigs in, and we found that they would turn the soil over quite well and eat the potatoes, and then that also manure. And so you get this really nice integrated system between the potatoes and the pigs. Anyway, we try and keep a really good relationship with our restaurants and butchers that we supply to. So we had them out, a couple of times to have a look at the potatoes, and they saw that we were using pigs, and they got pretty excited about that. So they asked my dad, when you have some piglets spare, can we have some? And so that's pretty much how we started free-range pigs, and found it was pretty much better farming economics doing pigs, better profit margins, I guess. So started doing that. So
I love the fact that, that whole model was a bit organic in itself. It's just like one problem solving another created another outcome. And that's I think that's how farming should be, not really overthought. And then what happened next, and how did you get so interested in the farming system and led you on to creating content?
Yeah, so I always grew up on a farm. We got pictures of me sitting on watermelons when I was younger on the tractor. It was a great childhood growing up on a farm. And so I was always involved in farming practices and just doing things on farms. Also the selling. So I remember we used to sell at farmers markets, and we used to go around to each stall and ask if they would like to trade. So I'd go up to them and say, can I get like a bagel or something? And try and trade them like a kilo of potatoes. And looking back on it now, I never knew really if they wanted that trade, but I was quite really wanting to make that trade. So I almost made it happen. Other than that, like other times, I was helping out on the farm, trying different things. Tried growing pumpkins. That failed quite badly because I knew how to grow them, but I didn't know how to sell them. So looking back on it now, it was a great opportunity to learn a bit more about business and more of that business side of agriculture, which we don't really talk too much about it, but it's just as important as growing, the produce. Because what I learned was you can grow as much produce and the best produce, but if you can't sell it, then you're not going to make anything. So the great lesson I learned. So from there, high school. So I finished high school last year, so quite young. Now I'm studying agricultural science at the University of Sydney, so taking a major in plant production and a second major in soil science and hydrology. So everything from the ground up, really, and then I'll take a couple of units in animal production. So really wanting to learn about that holistic, everything, integrated systems with agriculture. But so I started Agriculture Explained as a way to solve, a problem I saw during the HSC, so my high school years. And one of my subjects was agriculture, and I also had some other science subjects too. But I found that there wasn't many resources online that gave out good resources for agriculture. So there's a lot in chemistry, math, and physics, and there was quite a lot of people doing that, and the resources were quite good. But there wasn't many in agriculture. So I thought, well, I might as well be the person to start it, and just producing just free content for students and farmers. So my goal is to supply just high school level to early university level resources, educational resources for everyone to get a good foundational knowledge on agriculture. So that's a bit about me and Agriculture Explained.
I love it. It's such a great story in regards, or the fact that you're solving a problem, and I've watched your videos, and that's kind of what we met in one of these Zoom meetings that is happening all around the world now, thanks to COVID, and we're in all these virtual spaces. And I saw your background, and if you're on the Soil Learning Center and you're watching the video version of this, Teale does a great way of just showing up with his brand. He's got his YouTube channel background picture in the background with all the links and so forth. And I went, wow, there's someone who gets marketing and gets branding. And your story about the pumpkins is interesting, because a lot of farmers are selling a secret. They've got really good produce, they've got really good ethics and values, but no one knows about it. And in marketing 101, it's like you can't sell a secret. And then you fall into the commodities market where you go and outsource the selling to someone else, and it gets mixed with all the rest, and that's not a true testament to the story and the effort that you've put into your farm and your growing. So I love that story of, what some might see failure, but a massive learning experience for you that has led you to start this YouTube channel. And you've alluded that you just finished high school, and you may not want to exclude your age, but for such a young mindset to have this, I think it's really, really exciting about that. And I just want to share with the listeners, they're really entertaining videos, because you bring out the whiteboard, or it's like a chalkboard, and you've got diagrams and arrows. And, where did you get that idea? Was that just something you thought of because of the resources you had, or is that the way that you learned through visual?
Yeah, funny story. Well, I guess we had a big board of just the pine board, I guess. And I didn't really want to spend too much money. Sadly, I didn't want to spend too much money because I didn't have much. And so there was some chalk paint in the shed, and I had this board. I might as well just paint the board with this chalk paint. And so I didn't have to go buy a proper chalkboard. So I did that, and turned out all right. I probably need to fix it up, to be honest.
No, I like it.
So I guess that worked well for me, and I guess it also gives that kind of learning feel to it. Maybe back in the day, I remember in year 2, so primary school, my teacher used to use a chalkboard. So it's not too old, but I think it throws back to really putting that class setting, really getting everyone ready to learn.
Bit nostalgic. I like that. And true, farmer innovation. It's like, look around the shed. What have I got? That'll do. You just, sticky tape it together, and moving forward is more important than waiting to order the whiteboard and, chalkboard and waiting for it to be perfect. And I think that authenticity comes through in your videos, which is the feeling I got. And that's why I got excited when I watched your stuff. I was like, oh, this is someone I need to get on the podcast. And really exciting because it's a young voice, and I think if we want to start talking to the new generation of farmers who are learning through YouTube and Zoom calls, people like yourself and myself who are embracing the technology, it's game changing for a lot of people. A bit of a breath of fresh air to go, oh, finally someone who's giving me YouTube videos that are entertaining and educational. I want to change gears a little bit. So what with your YouTube channel and the content that you're learning, you mentioned that you're also studying. Are you using this as a way of documenting and learning out loud what you're currently learning, or have you already learned this stuff and you're going to university to solidify a piece of paper to prove that you've got the education? And what does education mean for you?
Yeah, so a little bit of both, I guess. So I believe teaching is the best way to cement that knowledge. So you learn it, but you can't really truly say you know something until you can really implement it. So for me, I found that teaching, I guess, these agricultural lessons really helped me to consolidate that. I also want to give back and help other students. So that's a massive, I guess, thing for me. So helping myself learn, but also teaching others. So all that, I guess, what I'm teaching now through Agriculture Explained is based off the HSC agricultural syllabus. So I'm going through each dot point. It's really tailored for students, but it's that fundamental knowledge that all farmers or hobbyists and gardeners really should know. So it's like what's the difference between a monogastric animal and a ruminant, or what's the characteristics of soil? Like it's that really basic, not basic, but the fundamental building blocks that we have to learn upon. So that's, I guess, what I've been up to now. In uni, I'm learning a whole lot more advanced stuff, but eventually I will make videos about a lot more of that high level, bit more advanced content. But then also making content on, I guess, what I've been up to on the farm as well.
Yeah, documenting what you're doing. I like the fact that your videos are somewhat in the classroom, so to speak, on the blackboard, but then you also go out into the paddock and you're showing the soil and you're going through the elements and so forth. So I think that is a nice balance of learning and also feeling like you kind of transported into the paddock with you. And for someone who lives in the city and is stuck in an apartment, that's really refreshing to be taken out into the paddock and to see that, and having the ability to have the technology to capture all that, which I know is a bit of a challenge for a lot of people who are doing some really amazing work. So I love the fact that you're shedding some light on that. Your channel focuses a lot on soil health and the word regenerative. What does that word mean to you?
Yeah, so I've had quite a while to think about this, and in one of my earlier videos, I came up with, I guess, a definition of it, and it was something along the lines of managing natural processes to improve natural systems within a farming enterprise. So that's more looking at it within a farm, and so I really believe in, I guess, the stewardship role of farmers. So we're not forcing farms to do anything in particular, but we're just working alongside our farms to make them the best they can, and then pretty much take off any excess that the farm doesn't need in itself. And that's pretty much what I believe where we're going to get our yield and profit from. But I also been thinking about it recently, the importance of regeneration in the farming business as well. I think that farmers, we're businesses, and so we need to make sure that we have a really high financial literacy. So I believe regenerative farming is much more than just building up soil fertility and making sure we have really healthy plants and animals, but also moves into our economic and social impacts in our community and where our farm, I guess, impacts. So I think it's much more of that holistic way of thinking about the farm.
Couldn't agree more. And the fact that your mind functions like this at your age is super impressive, because when I came into this space from the marketing and business and startup world, that was one of the things that I realized is a lot of farmers were just focusing on the farming aspect and they weren't looking at all the business side of it. And what you said there, they might have land literacy and knowing how to read the landscape, but what about the financial literacy, and not outsourcing that to the bank manager and going, are we all good? Is this season okay? What do I need to make this year? But really bringing that in and treating the farm enterprise as a business and seeing where there are areas. And I love your regeneration definition in regards to the surplus and putting that back into the farming system. And I think that, was evident with even like the pig situation where, you use that to fix the potato problem, and that then led to having pigs, and then you sold them, and it is all kind of natural. And I think when we zoom out, and you used also the word holistic, seeing all the many parts that create the whole is where the opportunity lies. Seeing one enterprise output as the input for the next enterprise, or bringing another talent into the farm and starting a new venture from that. So what's your roadmap for the farm and for others? How do they how do they start thinking about financial literacy? Is it self-education? Is it mentoring? What's like a key that helps that? Is it mindset?
Yeah, well, I guess I'm a bit biased because I guess I'm a YouTuber now, but YouTube University is one of the best places to go learn things.
I love that.
I've learned pretty much all of my, not all, but a lot of my business literacy skills pretty much on YouTube. So if you just type in or search business skills, there's 1,001 different channels that will teach you this. So it is education, and education is really important if we want to change practices. So it doesn't just have to be farming practices, but any practice that you want to change, you have to make sure you know that you can change pretty much and what to change. So you need that education. But you also need that mindset too. So you need both really to make change, but also to keep that change and continuously be changing.
Yeah.
And I guess we can relate, evolution and economics in a way, and which is the most fit survive pretty much. And so in a business situation, your most competitive and almost best businesses survive. So you have to make sure you understand about, I guess, business and how it connects to other of the greater macroeconomics, I guess. Because if we don't understand business, we can't really survive in the greater economics.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think from the nature world and natural selection type of things, like the fit of the fittest, and there is a bit of a ecosystem where they all work together. Yeah, I like that. I think, that whole point of, because I'm very guilty. I see YouTube as a university as well. There's a lot of trash videos on there, but there's also a lot of educational. And it's a balance, educate and then relax, and then educate and then relax. And I've learned a lot from what I call University of Life, and just from experience. Starting your own business is by far much better, in my opinion, than doing an MBA, because you're going to learn it through experience, and that fail. I think we're both fans of Gary Vee, but that hustling, but being focused, but also learning through experience, and go and make the mistakes and get back up and keep moving forward. And I think a farming enterprise is very much like that, where you can innovate, you can make mistakes, you can network with your neighbors, and now your neighbors aren't physical neighbors by the fence line. Your neighbors are global. You can sit in a virtual Zoom and have a yarn about, your challenges on the farm, and realize that people on the other side of the world are having exactly the same thoughts as you, so it's quite magical, this online learning platform. Have you always been someone who's very keen to learn and self-educate?
I think so. I guess my learning journey, I was quite slow to pick up language. So I wasn't a very keen speaker when I was quite young. I wasn't speaking until 5, 6 years of age. But I was really good at math. So I'm very math-minded, quite scientifically minded. So primary school, I was not very good at that English kind of side, but math I was really good at. Coming into high school, we could pick more of our units or subjects, and I went very much heavily on that science, math, agriculture side. And I really, excelled in that because I found what I was good at and interested in. So, so really playing to your strengths, and learning, but also having just a passion to learn. So learning, I think, is so fundamental to improving yourself. And if you're not learning every day, or what are you doing? You have to learn every day, self-improve, and that will get you better and better each day. So big mindset, about learning and being okay to fail. Failure, it sucks, but if you think about it, in the long term, it's better to fail now and learn from it now and improve than to fail later when you might not have as much time to recover.
Yeah, 100%. And reframing failure as a lesson learned, and using that to compound. There are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that will fail a lot, and every time they fail, they just know they're compounding They're not going out there purposely to fail, but it's okay to learn from that. I guess like you've got this really unique position where you can learn and then go out into the paddock, and you're in an ecosystem that's quite supportive of that. I know that from my experience with some farmers, there is a little bit of resistance when it comes to talking about soil health and, nurturing the soil and that biology under the ground. And it's so much easier just to get an input and throw it on the property. What's some advice that you can have to someone who maybe doesn't have that open-mindedness ecosystem around them, or maybe they don't even have access to land, so they're there learning? Any advice to those who don't have that in-class and out-of-classroom experience?
Yeah, I guess it's a hard one, definitely with, a lot of farmers. Now, I'm not pointing fingers or anything, but I think a lot of farmers do, take up practices that they've always used and their grandfathers used and the fathers before that used. So it is, it's a hard way to get out of a fixed mindset. But changing your mindset is so fundamental to learning and being open to learning. So for, every farmer out there, I encourage you to just go out and learn something new, something that you haven't learnt before. Go listen to some other podcasts and really get into, learning. For, people that may not have that farm that they can go do stuff on. Even in apartments, you can still set up little micro gardens and learning, about your soil and how it interacts with your plants. But also it for people that, are a bit more the consumer, it's a massive role for the consumer to support farms that they believe are taking up the right practices. So supporting your local farm, learning about where their produce actually comes from, I think that's a massive thing that the consumer and people that aren't on farms can take up. Yeah.
I would second that 100%, that voting with your dollars. I've often said that we've focused so much about certifying the farmers that we sometimes maybe now need to certify the consumers. Are you a conscious buyer? Are you certified to buy food consciously that is supporting the right systems? And I love that you've taken that to that point, because I think most people who are listening to this content, like even in our communities, people who come into our Facebook group, they're not on the land. They don't have access to it. I'm the same. I live in an apartment, but it hasn't stopped me from being super curious, buying a microscope, buying soil test kits, playing around with worm farms, doing, a lot of other courses to say, what can I do with the resources that I've currently got here? And I get to live through a lot of our members who hang out in the Soil Learning Centre about, seeing what they're doing on their land. And I get that kind of fix through others. But of course, I love to be on the land as well. But being a consumer and being a conscious shopper, I think that is such a great thing that all the soil lovers listening to this podcast is really just take that moment to sit with that and think about, like, what can you do today or tomorrow or this week or this month that can change your openness to support a farmer or to buy something more organic or regeneratively grown, and even understand what that is and then teach it to someone else. Because I think what you said before, Teale, about learning something is one thing, but if you can then teach it to someone else, it solidifies it for you, but then starts that chain reaction to someone else doing the same. So have you seen the consumer trends change over the last, say, 12 to 24 months, especially with COVID, or people more curious about where they're coming?
Yeah, I think so. So we also, some family farm, we also do a farmers markets at Everleigh, so that's in Sydney. And so I worked there for during high school, just selling, our pork. And a lot of people come up and they're just really interested in, understanding the process of how to produce really good pork. And, better practices, I believe, lead to better quality of produce. In terms of, the last 12 months, I think people have put more time into understand, a bit more about what they're eating. So we have a bit more of a conscious mind to our health. And I believe health comes from, I guess, food. So a lot of your health comes from food and the quality of the food that you eat. So yeah, I think that the consumer generally has paid a bit more attention to where their food is coming from, supporting local or Australian. Yeah.
I think it's been a little bit hard. I'm talking from Melbourne and maybe even Sydney. A lot of the farmers markets were affected by the lockdowns and closures and social distancing, capacity numbers and so forth. But I think it's definitely, people have gone, well, if I can't go to a farmer's market, how do I order directly? And then farmers have gone, okay, well, I don't know how to sell unless I go to a farmer's market. So how do I set up a mini web shop, or how do I go into a co-op and be able to move all my produce into a centralized place that people can come and buy their food from? So I think we are all innovating. The Open Food Network is an example of that, where they're empowering farmers to be able to set up an online presence and have a bit of an umbrella company around that. So I think there are, a lot of innovation has happened over the last 24 months. And I think, I walk down the aisles in the supermarkets and I see that there's less of everything, and I don't know what that means long term, but people are really wanting to know, how can I bring food power back into my domain? How can I make more, better conscious decisions? And the embracement of subscription models and selling directly, I think, is much more powerful. Is that something that your farm system is looking at, like meat boxes and, CSA models and things like that? Is that talk of the town?
So mainly we just supply, straight to butchers and restaurants. That's mainly our main focus, as well as the farmers markets. The problem, I think, with most farmers is that they just don't have time. They don't have time to package everything into boxes and send it out. And I'm not too sure how to overcome that, or if it's just a on per farm basis. But a lot of farmers, we're juggling so many roles. We have to make sure we're growing the produce, and then we have to take that production side, but as we were saying before, but also that business side too. So there's a lot of things to juggle. I'm not too sure how to overcome that problem, but yeah, co-ops are definitely an option, or setting up similar structures.
Awesome. And the fact that the problem is there is a good thing to address, because that means that there's a demand, and so if people, I've heard a lot of stories of people going, look, we love selling farm gate, we love selling directly, but we also need to grow and we need to get out into the paddock, and we can't be manning a farm gate all day, every day, because it gets us off the other tasks. So I think that's like, okay, well, now this is another issue that we need to solve. And I think a lot of minds out there are solving this as we speak, and we don't need to add to that. But I think the point I'd like to make, and for everyone who's listening, is that there is a big consumer demand to buy directly and support farms locally, and even through CSA models where people are buying shares into the farm yields and produce rather than just a subscription box. And I love that we're starting to have more of those kind of conversations here in Australia, because I've seen that model work really well in America, but not so much here, where we kind of go in with the farmer as a business partner and a shareholder of the yields. And so I think, we new conversations, new problems, and a good way of it. You've spoken a lot about the interconnections of all the farm systems and the business mind and the growing and so forth. Like, how connected is everything on a farm system, and what are the kind of things that you've observed about the interconnection of mindset, farming, growing, spirit, soul, and then the produce?
Yeah, so I think pretty much everything is connected on a farm. So your mindset of the farm is pretty much connected to every part. Your education as a farmer and how you see your farm fundamentally affects probably your management strategies. So everything is built off of soil and water and sun. So that's pretty much where everything on a farm comes from. And so everything from there flows on. So your plants are affected by your soil directly, and then your animals eat the plants. And then, we harvest all of that, which is where we get, our business from. So the role, the farmer has is making sure all of that is managed correctly. So if you don't have the right education to make sure that runs smoothly or as effectively as it can be, then that's going to influence the whole farm. So everything in a farm is connected. And I would encourage everyone again to understand how these pieces are connected, because what you do on one side of the farm will most likely affect the other side of the farm. Like water, the flow of water on a farm is connected to everything too. That affects your soil and your animals. So understanding and having a look at your farm and seeing where, well, your water flows and your minerals are going to move, and if you're going to have sort of not degradation but erosion, and where all the minerals are going to move to, understanding all of that and how it affects the farm, I think, just understanding every bit and how it interconnects is fundamental to, I guess, improving effectivity and whatnot. Yeah.
I love that. Your wisdom on that is just so profound. Like I think it takes most people pretty much their whole life to understand the connectedness of all the elements of the farm, and just hearing you explain that gives me so much hope about the future of farming and zoomed out view, and understand that what you're doing on this side of the paddock is affecting the other side of the paddock or the other side of the farm, or even, downstream, what you're putting into your property is going into the waterways, is causing erosion, is affecting the farm down the river, is affecting the wildlife, it's, reducing the biodiversity, it's just the soil, water, sun elements that are basically key, and how connected they are is super simple in a way, yet so many people don't get it, and that's one of the mind-blowing things that I have when I come into this space. And we watched a documentary with our members recently, and one of the people just said, this is just common sense. Like, this is the no-brainer, like, I know. You're talking to the converted, how do we make this mainstream?
Yeah. And I'll give an example, I guess, of what we've done on our farm. So I moved a couple of cows from one paddock to another because the pasture in the first paddock was getting a bit low. So in the second paddock, I divided it into smaller lots where it's on a slightly sloped paddock. So at the top of the slope, we have a heap of trees, and as well as the water trough. And at the bottom, the grass and the pasture there is a bit better. So what you find when you put your cows in is that they'll rest and drink up at the top, and then they'll spend a lot of time there just chilling out. But then they'll move down to the bottom and eat all that grass and whatnot, and they'll move back up to the top. But during that process, you're moving organic matter from the grass at the bottom, and then moving it up to the top where the cows will then manure. So then you're getting this cycle of nutrients across, I guess, your landscape. So just by changing your paddock design and where you're putting your water trough and your trees affects, well, the distribution of nutrients across your landscape. So amazing. Just those little things that you can just tweak and make a system so much more effective.
100%. And I think, soil lovers, I really want you to understand that what Teale just explained is that you can get the animals to do the heavy lifting for you. You get in, by just looking at your landscape, deciding, making better decisions of where your water trough is, can actually help you, fertilize the farm and move minerals around, and watching the land and the literacy of the land. And I think that's just a really great example. And I'm sure you've got hundreds of all these, and I would really love for you to put more of this. Is this the kind of content that you're going to be putting out on your YouTube channel?
Yes, So currently I'm doing a lot of animal production, plant production, and regenerative agriculture practices and techniques. So if you want to check out more of those kind of things, I'll be talking a lot about these different practices and how we can use our land a bit more regeneratively, and different practices and techniques we can implement. So all of that will be on YouTube channel, also on Facebook. So you can see what I've been up to on our farm.
Yeah. And for those listening and watching, the links will be around the show. I, just really want to get this information out, and I want to live and learn through you and with you. You know what I mean? Like taking us out into the paddock and just giving visual representations of what you just explained there. I think so many people will have that penny drop moment or that aha moment where they go, "Oh, that just makes so much sense." And it's that paradigm shift that then gives us the ability to think differently. Seeing is believing, and I'm so glad that you shared that story with us and our soil lover listeners, because it's those type of paradigm shifts and examples that you just don't see when you have the other glasses on. You're just so focused on yields and inputs and making ends meet. It's really hard to be creative and think so with abundance and thriving when you're coming more from a scarcity and survival mode. This better yield because we're going to lose the farm type of thing. And there's a lot of people in that situation. So I think, with working smarter rather than harder and utilizing all the many parts to help you build a better, smarter business, I think is really, really exciting for the future of farming. Do you see a lot more younger people getting excited about farming? Because I feel like we've gone through this little bit of drought of talent where people are like, I don't want to have the life that my parents had. And some parents probably don't want their kids to have the life that they had. Are you seeing that narrative change a little bit?
Sadly, no, I don't think so. What I've observed from, I guess, at my university, I am, I think, one of 20 or 30 people taking my course, which is very small. I don't think many people set out to go into agriculture. And I don't know why. It might be money in there or the amount of working hours. I know a lot of people are moving away from the dairy industry because, well, the pay versus what you have to do, I think there's better opportunities for something else. So it's a really hard problem that we have to fix because, well, we need, I guess, more young talent and more young people joining agriculture. And I think one of the things we can majorly implement is new technology. So there's automated milkers, like milking robots that you can now get in your dairies. So this is what I get really excited about, because now you can take a really data-driven approach to your farming. And so with data, it gives you more, I guess, information about your farm and your enterprise, and then you can make really good decisions for that farm. So implementing, I guess, better technologies into agriculture, I think will lead to a greater profitability, which will then attract younger people. And it's a sad thing, I guess, in the world, but money really talks. So where the money is, people go, and despite what you think, if that's good or bad, it's what it is. And there's not much you can change about it. So you might as well, I guess, sit back and go, right, what can I do to I guess, bring people in? So that's a big problem I see in agriculture. So getting young people in, implementing better technology.
Well, I think you're all definitely on the journey to inspire more younger people to embrace this way of farming and learning. And I think we do need that bridge between where the technology is and going, and people getting excited about it and not fearing it. I think so many times we see innovation and technology being researched, and a lot of farmers are spooked by that. They think, oh, what am I going to do? I think for too long, the net worth of a farmer has been how many hours they sit on a tractor, and that doesn't necessarily mean we're sitting on the tractor doing the right thing. A lot of resistance comes from no tilling, because well, then what am I going to do? Why am I needed on this farm if I don't sit on a tractor for, 700 hours a month? And so, that embracing of technology and getting excited about semi-automation, data-driven business decisions, because it's happening everywhere else. And I think you make a really good point that we can use this to get people excited about it. And where the money flows, people do go. You've got a great point there as well. And one thing that I've learned recently is that if you don't get in the middle of that money system and do something good with it, someone else will get in the middle of that money system and do whatever they want with it. So if you really want to have control of what's happening with that money flow, you have to learn to embrace that and go, I'm going to come in and do something in this system and do something that's ethical and right, because the money in the wrong hands can do really bad things as well. I think that's where some people get scared about that whole capitalist movement, is that it's all for doom and gloom. But if no one steps up and catches that money and does something pure with it, then it's going to not fix itself, So definitely feel like that's a great thing. Well, I think we can chat about farming and business and entrepreneurship and gadgets and gizmos all day, every day, because this is the stuff that gets me excited about this industry as well. But I want to ask you our signature question. Are you ready to become the voice of our soils?
Yes, for sure.
Excellent. So if you were the voice of our soils and you could embody yourself and become the soil, what would you tell us on Earth?
So I guess this comes back to what my year 12 teacher told me. She said, it's not dirt, it's soil. Don't disrespect your soil. So that comes from, I guess, a place of understanding and really understanding how your soil is, it builds your farm ultimately. If you're not looking after your soil, you're not looking after your farm. So respecting your soil and understanding its connection with everything else, I think that is what the soil, I guess, would be telling us. So look at me. Don't call me dirt, call me soil. Respect and understand me. Yeah.
Love that. Respect and understand it. Stop treating me like dirt and start loving me like soil. I love that, exactly. Teale. Perfect note to end on. If people have become excited, which I know they will, how do they get to hang around with you more? What are your links and plug your YouTube?
Yeah, so on YouTube at Agriculture Explained, I go through all the fundamental things about agriculture. So not, I guess, everything basic and fundamental that you need to know for agriculture. Also on Facebook, if you want to see a bit more of that one-on-one, I guess, having a look about our farm and what we're doing. Also on LinkedIn as well. So, follow me there.
Got all the socials covered. I love it. All those links will be around the show notes and around the video if you're watching on the Soil Learning Centre. Teale, it has been an absolute pleasure digging deep with our soils today. True testament to what you're doing. I can, say that your videos, for someone who's been in this space for a little while, I'm pretty new to it, but your videos just explain things so well and so refreshing. So I really encourage everyone to go out there and just watch a couple of the videos, subscribe, hit the bell and get notified when all the new videos land. You're doing like 1 or 2 a week, which is just awesome to see that you've got the capacity to learn out loud and teach others. And, I really know that some of your videos will make the missing dots join for a lot of people because you just explain it in a real down-to-earth way, pun intended.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on the podcast.
No worries. It's easy when we've got so much in common and the synergy just flows. So I've really enjoyed crossing paths and I really hope that our soil lovers enjoy this podcast. So on that note, thank you very much for hanging out with us today. I will look forward to seeing your next video landing very, very soon. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, soil lovers. Really enjoyed today's conversation. So make sure that you get outside, get your hands dirty, go check out Teale's YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button, even with your dirty hands. Until next time, I'm Regen Ray. Well, soil lovers, that's enough secrets for one episode. I really hope that you enjoyed all the secrets shared during this conversation. But hey, let's not keep it a secret. Please share this podcast around and make sure that you like it and leave us a review because that really helps spread the secrets of the soil. Until next time, remember, get outside, get your hands dirty and keep digging deeper into your soils.